decision day at the MPC, and the CBN governor is still responding to questions from journalists after his speech. Let's take a listen again and get some feels as we continue our discussion.
A whole host of different areas. So where we see that that capacity is there, the central bank would be happy to partner, and that goes similar to what one had just said about the collaboration that we have had with regulatory authorities and also law enforcement authorities. But let's face this particular issue. Now, the fertilizer that was given out was the residue of an intervention that had been done before we came into office. It was not something that was done directly by us. And the options were either to leave them there to rot away or to give them to those that we believed had the capacity to distribute. And that is exactly what we did with the handing over to the Ministry of Agriculture. In actual fact, the way I see it is that we've taken those particular merchandise and put it where it rightly belongs.
Thank you, sir. I have another question from Babajide Komolafe of Vanguard. He said the recent appreciation of the Naira against other major global currencies is certainly welcome news. What steps is the CBN taking to ensure that this positive momentum continues? Some suggest that the forex interventions are distorting the market. Is there validity to this claim? And how does the CBN ensure that the exchange rate remains flexible?
So many questions in one. Well, I think first and foremost, it's something that I tend to talk about a lot when I speak on foreign exchange at public fora like this, and that is the issue of distortions. The issue of distortions. And just to say that we were painstaking in ensuring that we removed as many of the distortions that proved in the way of the rates finding their right level for price discovery. Because for price discovery to happen, certain fundamentals or certain attributes need to be in place. And you would recall that there's been a whole myriad of different circulars that have come out over a period of time which were designed to remove those distortions such that the market became a lot freer and the concept of willing buyer and willing seller became something that was a lot easier to establish. And therefore, by that, you would have the price discovery, the appropriate price discovery. Now, of course, in all this is the importance of liquidity, okay? Because try as you may, if there's not enough liquidity going in and out of the market, then obviously that in itself can pose a problem. The central bank, I would say, looking to the future at some point in time, would expect to have a situation where interventions from the central bank into the market will be minimal to non-existent. But where we see the need to have liquidity pumped in to ensure liquidity in the market and that the market is boisterous and stakeholders can come in and go out, we will do so. The idea is by no means to establish any price, but at least to catalyze the demand and supply equation in such a way that the market gets its own confidence, and as I said, price discovery is established, and people get used to that. And once that becomes a regular occurrence, then we expect that we'll find that the need for central bank to come in and will be significantly reduced to eliminated. The market should really run on its own at some point in time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Governor. Another question just dropped from Numed AKG of this day newspaper. And he said, Mr. Governor, sir, This is a very short question. We can see the work that you and your team are doing, but how do we avoid rising interest rates from strangulating economic growth?
Yeah, it's a short question, but unfortunately, my response can't be as short as that, to be honest. But really, on a serious note, to say that we are not unmindful of the impact that these increases in interest rates are having. We are not unmindful of it. We are very, very, very mindful. And in actual fact, if you look at it, why are we doing this? Because we've said our main objective is to manage inflation. And we believe that with increased interest rates, we have a situation where the foreign exchange market becomes a lot more lively. We've had relative shortages in foreign exchange over the recent past. We're now seeing more activity in the foreign exchange market, which in turn is reducing the exchange rate and is also reducing costs. Okay, so it's not a one-sided affair that the increase in interest rates is strangulating the economy. While it may have those tendencies on one side, with the foreign exchange rate coming down, that also helps to moderate the overall. And as I had said earlier, we would expect that this would not be too long drawn, at least I would hope so, that it would not be too long drawn. We are getting towards a situation where on the exchange rate it is moderating, and we expect it to continue to moderate, and then it finds a level which, quite frankly, very, very important, is sustainable. That's very, very, very important, a level that is sustainable, which obviously will involve huge huge collaboration with the fiscal side, because a lot of that cannot just rely on the monetary side alone. So whatever we see on the interest rate side, which is being used to help to moderate prices, buys us time to ensure that the fiscal side, is able to do all the things that it is already doing and ensures for a more sustainable economy, where the need to depend too much on hiking interest rates is considerably reduced. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Governor, sir. That brings us to the end of this press briefing. Thank you all for coming, and see you.
Wait, one more before you go. Sorry, before you go, because I was almost missed something which I think is very, very important, and that is that one particular individual who is amongst us today and who is referred as the doyen of the directors, Dr. Tumala, is on his way out. So this is his last NPC meeting. Okay, he's retiring next month, but this is his last NPC anyway. So just to thank you on behalf of not just the NPC, but I know I'm speaking for the press as well, for the tireless efforts and of course the high quality of what you've produced for the NPC. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Governor. That ends the press briefing. Thank you all for coming, and see you in May.
I have to remind you when he's retired before the same you talked about.
That's true. No, that's a good one. All right. All right, that would be nice. I deliberately left out that other point about last time. Where did you get us? Every time you come, they ask you questions.
Right there, well, it's official. NPR stands at 24.75%, and CRR hits 45%. I still have my analysts behind, standing by to break this down for us. Mr. Paul Alaji, who's a partner and, of course, senior economist at SPM Professionals, and Mr. Bolan Olojede, who's... let me start again with Mr. Olojede. Mr. Olojede, the CBN governor is optimistic. He believes that inflation will start to taper down as we move towards the end of the year. With what you see, do you see that happening?
I think it's correct. We're supposed to start seeing the lagging effect of all this is policy push of the past few months. So inflationary pressure should, we should start to see some downward pressure on inflation. However, what will make all these policies to come together and deliver the expectations of Nigerians is if we can complement his effort with intervention on the fiscal side of things. As far as monetary is concerned, he has been bold and he's taken all this step. He has become consistent about what he wants to do, and we are beginning to see the effect of that consistency. But I think we will have a problem along the line with sustainability of the impact of those steps if those steps are not complemented by intervention on the fiscal side of things to help deliver what we would like to see as a people. You can see how things are already beginning to pull in different directions. Exactly now that we are having rise in MPR and all those stuff, of course, it will encourage foreign portfolio. They will start to come, they'll bring the money because they can see opportunities within the economy. They will bring the money. However, what will be the impact on manufacturers and other businesses who need to borrow? So on one side, we will be gaining, on the other side, we will be losing. So being able to put all these things together will require the fiscal side of things to rise up and think of intervention that will complement what is already going on in the monetary side of things. That is the way forward for us to have a sustainable, positive effect of what Mr. Cardoso is currently doing.
Brilliant stuff. Mr. Paul Alaje, all of this is supposed to shape in the economy. I'm talking about the policies, decisions after this meeting. And to attract investments, we expect FPIs, we expect FDIs, we expect investors' confidence, renewed drive into Nigeria's economy. Do you think that we are getting a lot of clarity that will make that happen with all of these moves by the Apex Bank's governor?
No doubt, it's expected, provided we have complementary effects coming from the fiscal side and coming from the trade side, we will most likely have investment inflow to the portfolio component of foreign direct investment. It is no doubt. This has been the trajectory, this has been the tradition, this has been the pattern over the years. What we need, however, is investment into the real sector, both local and foreign direct investment into the real sector. So here it is. With high interest rates, commercial banks, among other banks, will also increase their interest rates. Borrowing to start business will become relatively tougher. Meanwhile, putting money in bonds, treasury bills, will be relatively easier because of the high interest rates. So foreign investors who may want to now bring their money to Nigeria, their investment will make more sense into Nigeria. But because of institutional challenge that is beyond the control of central bank, but the fiscal authority, we have to take decision on, alongside with the trade authority. This authority must also respond the way we have seen significant response coming from monetary authority. So for me, I think we will see some investment inflow, but it will be majorly into the capital market of this world, people coming in to buy into our debt market because it is so high now. So you are going to see in a matter of months, and I can tell you, you may want to check by the time the next NPC is meeting in May, you might want to check the kind of inflow we would have had into the country. I tell you that yes, there will be inflow, but most of this inflow will either be into the capital market or in the debt market because of the rate. To invest in Nigeria real sector would require that our infrastructure is working. It also require that power supply is functional beyond what we have today. So I don't think we're going to see that real sector investment, but I can tell you we'll see portfolio investment rushing into Nigeria, especially that we are seeing some relative stability. You know, even though it's too short to decide, in our FX market and as it affects our exchange rate this moment today.
All right, finally for Mr. Olojede, before I let you go, there is this discussion about the fiscal side and the monetary side having this handshake. And Mr. Cardoso also mentioned that the central bank is doing what they can do on the monetary side and, of course, expected to be complemented by what happens on the fiscal side. What more deliberate efforts do you expect from the federal government moving on, aside from the cost-cutting measures that we identified earlier in our conversation?
Okay, I'll give just one example of such measures. You see, every time you look at our inflation figure, you observe that the food inflation towers ahead of the composite figure. So when you have 30% inflation figure, if you take the food inflation in isolation, it might be about 32. So what that says is that an important driver of that composite inflation figure is food inflation. So where government look at that space and begin to say, what can we do to moderate food inflation? Whatever is done in this country to moderate food inflation will have a dramatic effect in moderating the general inflation environment. So an intervention at the fiscal side of things should be looking at is how can we intervene in the food space to bring down food inflation, because it will have a general downward pressure effect on the general inflation.
Well, what a good way to leave it. I must thank you so much, Public Affairs Analyst Mr. Bola Olojede. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Mr. Paul Alaje, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. So what is the outlook for you considering all that has been laid down today? Don't forget, global issues also matters.
Well, Nigeria grapples with a lot of global externalities. We are affected by the war. We did not detonate any bomb, which is currently going on in Ukraine. Ukraine versus Russia, new outputs, new concerns around Ukraine-Russia war because of terrorist attack on the soil of Russia, which Russia have alleged Ukraine as the masterminder. We also know what is going on between Hamas and Israel and the impact on grain and, in fact, the extension to Nigeria. So all of those factors are externalities. They are stochastic variables that we need to either keep constant because they are there. But as a matter of fact, we're also looking at factors that it affect us, of course, that also affect some other person. The outlook is this. Yes, the central bank have renewed energy in increasing rates, which of course we have positive and negative implication at the same time. But for all of these positive projections that are coming from the central bank and expectation to come true, there's an underlying assumption that the remaining two legs of the economy, one, trade, secondly, fiscal authority, will respond. My advice is that the president may, one, central bank governor, which we have seen is renewed energy in the past 3 months or 4 months, if I can say, must also have that handshake and have that policy convergence with the fiscal counterpart and the trade counterpart. The fiscal authority must go beyond just collecting revenue for government and spending the same. It must also consider what are the key areas and how do we work with our subnational counterparts to ensure that key issues that affects the economy is taken care of. And most importantly, we must liberalize our exports.
Mr. Alaje, I must thank you so much. That's our time. Senior Economist Partner, SPM Professionals. Thank you so much for making sense of this discussion. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, a lot there. 24.75%. Yes, that's the NPR rate as it stands now in Nigeria. But before we go, let's tell you, Zambian government